Hey guys, I just want to open this one up by telling you a little story. When I first started playing Dark Souls 1, I thought it was the trash worst game I ever played because I thought it was way too hard and I didn't understand how to play it. It didn't take I didn't really understand the game until about 50 hours into the game, and then I finally started to understand how to make the mechanics work, how to fight, how to block, how to space, you know? Um, all that just to say that I've been playing these games since Dark Souls 1. I've beaten Dark Souls 1 multiple times. I've beaten Demon Souls multiple times. I've beaten Dark Souls 2 multiple times. I've beaten Dark Souls 3 multiple times, and I've beaten Bloodborne multiple times. The only one I haven't played is Sekiro. Um, yeah, so I played all of the Soulsborne games. Pretty much. I mean, if you count Sekiro, then no, I haven't played all of them. And yeah, people say that's the hardest one, but I I think I know a few things about this game at this point, and my title might be a little inflammatory, calling this an easy game, but it's just hyperbole at the end of the day. It's not an easy game. You can die in this game. It's hard. It requires you to learn the game. My only point, what I mean by calling it an easy game, is that it's um it's easier once you know what you're doing, and winning in this game is only a matter of knowledge. Okay, and anyone can beat this game, really. Like anybody can beat Elden Ring, anybody can beat Dark Souls. That cannot be said of every single game. Some games are really do require more um, more from the player in terms of just raw skill. You know what I mean? Like I would consider any multiplayer game where you're battling against other players to be harder than this game, right? Like Overwatch is harder than this game, right? So this game is not hard. It really isn't. Like the difficulty of this game is completely overblown. You just have to know the mechanics of the game and treat it like an RPG. Because that's what it is, you have to level up, you have to play the game, you have to learn the mechanics. Okay? So I'm just gonna go through a list of tips here that might make the game a little easier for you, okay? But I want to start with just a general frame of mind that we should have while we're playing the game. It's very easy to run, into the distance in this game and find a giant dragon and get completely destroyed and get really mad and be like, "Oh no, no, no! I just lost my souls!" And get super, super upset. But it really isn't like that, right? It really isn't that big of a deal when you think about it. Like right now, I have about 10K souls. But if I died right now and lost all my souls, it wouldn't be a big deal, right? I wouldn't freak out. I wouldn't be sad. I wouldn't be mad. Even though I could use those souls to level up in about, double that, right? Um, because it's just a game, right? And dying in this game is not as big of a consequence. You're not losing a bunch of time. You're not losing a bunch of progress. It feels like that, but you actually aren't, right? It's dying in this game is not a big deal, okay? First of all, the chances that you'll die once and then not be able to pick up your souls is low, right? Unless you go into a boss. You die just in the area, then you'll be fine, right? So all you have to do is not go into a boss fight with a bunch of souls that you think you're going to lose and go get a little bit more souls and go level up before you go to the boss. Okay, so don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to lose all of your souls by overextending. Right? It's like, oh, I only have 5 Estus left. Maybe I should teleport back to the Grace and rest. You know what I mean? Of course, I could make it with 5 Estus, but that's just an example, right? Um, so don't worry about dying and losing all your souls. Okay, it's not a big deal. Like it especially goes for people that are complaining about being invaded, constantly like, oh, invaders suck. I really wish invaders worked the way it did in Dark Souls 1, where I could just be invaded just if I had an ember, right? Like that's how it used to work. Whenever you had a humanity, you could be invaded. I preferred it that way because I enjoy Like, okay, some of my best memories from Dark Souls 1 are things like me opening a chest and then immediately getting backstabbed instead of grabbing the treasure or whatever. Like, that's just fun stuff. Like, I like being trolled in this game. It's funny, it's enjoyable, it's fun to die in this game. Right? The deaths are comical, you know? It's fun to get trolled by an invader, and they're at such a disadvantage that I just like I would give the applaud emote if I wasn't already dead. You know what I mean? I like being kicked off the cliff. I like the cheese. I like being cheesed. It's fun, right? And not only that, but you can win against invaders, right? And you don't have to be invaded in this game. Like in so many other games, uh, you had to be invaded whenever like you would do anything because you would have like half your health if you didn't use like if you didn't ember up or whatever. And then you would always get invaded. So it was like invasions were kind of being pushed on you, you know what I mean? But it's not like that in this game, right? You don't have to be invaded at all. At all. Um, like for invasions, right? You don't have to like constantly hot swap and like do abusing consumables and doing the most meta thing to win against invaders, right? First of all, most people, when they're invaded, they only have summons with them. So, with that alone, as long as you understand what you're doing and you know how to use your summons and your uh, human summons, you should not die. Like, you have two other people with you, right? Let them fight instead of trying to take them on all by yourself, right? Gang up on them, use your teammates, right? I see so many people in co op just run away from their hosts. Like huddle up with your host. Like huddle up um with your invader, right? Like with your co-op partner, with your son bro, you know? Um yeah, and like you don't have to do any of that stuff. What you have to do is like practice your stamina management, use a decent weapon, you know what I mean? You don't even have to use the best meta weapon in the game. Um learn your move set, using that, using all kinds of like different moves that you have. Stop just spamming the same moves over and over. You know what I mean? Like if you get invaded and um, your enemy tries to go hide behind some enemies, right? Don't just run at the invader and try and laser focus on them. Okay? Just take the moment to realize that you have more Estus than they do. They just ran out behind the enemy, right? Behind some enemies. So you should just wait while those enemies are not aggroed, heal up, use your buffs, use whatever you have, then go in and not go for the invader, but go for the the enemy. And while you're not locked on to that enemy and you have your camera trained on the invader, fight some enemies, kill them if possible. Once he tries to punish you for killing the enemies instead of him, take advantage of that and use your fastest attack while he tries to punish you, punish him right back, right? Or use a super hyper armor attack, right? He won't be expecting that, and aim for him, lock onto him immediately as he starts rushing towards you. Okay. Uh, stop spamming L2. You know what I mean? Like stop spamming R1. Stop spamming all of these attacks. Like they're not an auto win, right? They're like this attack right here is not an auto win. It's a good tool and it's good for certain situations. It's like, oh, well, it does the most damage out of any of my attacks. It's like, well, is it good for every situation? Like, so do you sometimes need to do a really long combo? You know what I mean? Like, what do you need to do? Okay. Yeah, and if you die to an invader, just go get your runes afterwards. Right? Is it that big of a deal that you died to an invader? It's like you ruined it. Like people will get invaded, but invaded, right? And they're like, oh shit, I lost all my runes that I made with my co-op buddies. And then they'll go summon some more co-op buddies and go back to go get their runes. And it's like, well, no, you should have just gone to get your runes solo, right? Just go back through the level without summoning so you don't get invaded again and just go get your runes. Like, I don't understand how you could feel like this game is so hard that you can't even get through the basic level, not just the boss, but like the basic level without two co-op partners. You know what I mean? Like, do you really not like this game that much? Like, just learn the enemy's movesets and try to like treat them like a mini boss, right? Like, they also have patterns that you can learn and stuff that you can exploit, and just get through the level and get your runes after you get killed in an invasion. Okay, stop being so overly proud. Like, here's the deal. Right now, I'm playing this game for the second time. Right, I played all the other Souls games a lot more times, but like I am trying to do what most people do, kind of, but my own version of it, right? And that is to just play a purely physical non-mage. Right? I always play as magic in all of like the Souls games. I always sprinkle in at least a little magic. And why do I do that? And like it's like, oh, magic sucks. Like magic is terrible. No, if magic is not overpowered and it's not bad, right? Magic is just another tool you have in this game. It's like, no, I am only proud in this game if I only use melee attacks and never ranged. It's like, where does that come from? Like, what does that mean? Like, why? Why are ranged attacks suddenly cheap or bad? You can use magic as much as you want. Use magic, use melee, use everything, right? Use consumables, use all the tools this game's give you, and you will do way better, right? Like, don't just only limit yourself to just comboing. Uh, and also use a shield, right? Like, yeah, it's probably meta to two-hand your weapon or whatever in PvP, but if you're not if you're not like a, if you're not trying to like play this game primarily to succeed in PvP and you're just trying to beat the game, right? And you're getting frustrated by PvP, then what's the point, right? Just use a shield. Like use a shield for the whole game. Like or if you're trying to do it in PvE so you feel less like cowardly, like you're not hiding behind a shield or whatever. Like shielding and blocking is like a good tactic in this game, you know? And it does take up a lot of stamina, but you know, it's way more forgiving than trying to time your rolls. Okay? Um Also use the damn spirit ashes, right? Like I don't like to use the human summons in this game because they do just make the game way too easy. Like if you think this game is hard, right, and you're using like co-op partners, I really don't understand that. Because I thought with co-op partners, playing that way with like summoning a co-op partner just made the game way too easy. Right? It was like I blew through every boss without even trying. Right? Now going through the game a second time with just spirit ashes, I feel like it's balanced, right? Like my spirit ashes aren't super powerful, right? I'm not using like the dung eater or the mimic tier or anything. I'm just using like demi humans or whatever, and it's fine, right? They just do their job. They do a little distraction. They don't carry you through the fight. You still feel like you did something in the fight, right? Like you still feel like you did most of the damage in the fight, right? You have to combo the boss. Like your spirit summon will always do way less damage than you, unless it's certain ones, right? So really just use the spirit's ashes. Right? Don't be too proud of for that either, right? Stop being so proud. It's an intended way to play the game, right? I'm sure some people will be like, no, spirit ashes are cheating. But it's not cheating, man. It's like there's a whole system in this game where there's all these resources that you gather to upgrade your spirit ashes, all these spirit ashes you can find, all these quests that you do to get them, right? Like there's so much emphasis that's placed on the gameplay and getting them. It's like It's like 30% of your treasures is different summons. So just find one that matches your difficulty level, right? Like there is a difficulty slider in this game. It's using whatever spirit summon you want, right? Like using the noble sorcerer is like hard mode, but like still slightly easier than doing it by yourself, right? And then using Dung Eater is like super easy mode. Just you choose the spirit summon that makes the game easy for you or the perfect difficulty for you, right? And just use that. Um, let's see what else. Yeah, don't just listen to like what you hear on Reddit and just blanket apply it to all situations for your build, right? Like if you Google like, oh, what is the best infusion, like this or that, people will just say their opinion, but it doesn't like they're not their advice does not apply to you and your build. Okay? Like all infusions in the game are useful, okay? For different amounts of stats that you have, okay? A lot of people will say like, "Oh, you can't do this because it requires too many stats to be powerful." But like, why does everybody think in every new release of these games that we all have to stop leveling up at the same time? Like in Dark Souls 1 and 2 and 3, the community was always like, "Oh, I'm only going to go up to 150. I'm only going to go up to 175. I'm only going to go up to 200." In this game, everyone's like, "Only go up to 200." Well, you don't have to do that, right? That is a huge piece of advice is to stop following that advice. You may think I'm not going to be able to connect with anyone. Like I mean, it's going to be totally lonely. I'll have no more multiplayer. But you know what? I've done it in every single Souls game that I've played. I always go probably like double what everybody says, right? And and have I ever had problems with like nobody is there to connect with me? No, right? There's always people to connect with you, invaders and co-op partners alike, right? You can get invaded or you can co-op, right? You can do it all. You can go into the arena, right? You can do it at level 300. I have a level 300 character on this profile, and she can connect with anyone, right? Like, not with anyone, but what I mean is like I can connect recently fast, right? There's still people that are that level, right? You will be matchmaked regardless of whatever level you are. Okay, there will be people who log on and play with you, but you don't have to wait 5 fucking hours. It's not true. Okay, let's see what else. Yeah, so I just want to say another thing about the weapons, right? Like a lot of things that the community says about like weapon scaling only applies to you if you're doing that thing that I just talked about, where you level up only to level 200, right? People will tell you that like that one staff or whatever, like sorcerer staff that has like S scaling and like 4 attributes. You know what I mean? Like that those kinds of weapons are really bad because they require too much. Like if it has a C scaling in faith, dex, strength, and intelligence, right? You know what I mean? Those weapons have the highest damage in the game. Okay, like they do. They just do. Like go into a build calculator instead of listening to people online on YouTubers like me. Okay, like those weapons do have the highest damage numbers in the game because precisely because they scale with so many stats. Now, granted, you have to really, really invest. You have to really pump your stats into those stats, right? You have to get a lot of stats, right? You probably have to hit the soft cap in like 4 stats. But if you do, like you will have a very strong weapon. So just stop trying to like sacrifice your vigor or endurance for it, right? Just literally level up beyond 200. Just go up to 300, right? It's that simple. And if you feel like, oh no, I can't connect to anyone anymore, well, guess what? If your complaint was that the game's too hard, that's over now, right? Like, even if you really couldn't connect to everyone, you don't need to anymore. You know what I mean? Because you can now beat the entire game with just your character. But you will be able to connect. Because a lot of people are playing this game on New Game Plus. Okay? A lot of people play this game on New Game Plus too. There are people who do it. So you will find somebody to connect to. You just have to wait a little longer than normal. Okay, here's another tip. Stop trying to be the parry god with no armor. Right? There are certain YouTubers that I've seen that are that, right? That they're just that good. You can become that someday if you want, right? But practice parrying with armor first. You know what I mean? Even those people are just doing it to flex, right? They know that it's probably easier if they don't not wear any armor, right? If they put some armor on, you know what I mean? Or if they're saving on armor so they can get damage or whatever. But yeah, those builds can work for like high skill players, but like I just I implore you to put at least something into your defense, right? Put some health. Put on some health, right? You need health. You need to reduce the damage that you're taking. If you're a mage build, great. Like you can still optimize your armor if you have very low endurance. Right? You can find better defensive ropes, right? That are, like pump your endurance up to level 15 or something, right? Get your endurance a little higher so that you can equip something, right? Um, oh yeah, this is another tip that I see is very important, right? I see a lot of people are like, oh, the dungeons suck in this game. I couldn't disagree more, right? I think the dungeons are some of the most fun this game has to offer. And I think the level design is actually great in the dungeons. They're simple, yeah. Like they're simple and it feels like they're copy paste to people, but I think that they're just mistaking simplicity for like lack of quality. Right? They're to me they're quaint, they're charming, they're fun, there's a little boss, right? They're just a little fun distraction. So go do everything in each area before you move on, right? That's like if you want to do well in this game and make it easy and feel like, oh man, I keep running into bosses that I can't beat and I can't do this and I can't do that. Do everything in each area. Okay? I'm just gonna list everything you should do, okay? First of all, you should do every dungeon. Okay, do every dungeon. Do every Everjail. Okay, get every golden seed. Get every sacred tier. Fight every field boss. Get as many spirit ashes and treasures as you need. Okay? Look up the locations of the items that are in each area. Like look up all the items that are in Laernia or whatever, and go find the ones that you want. Right? Like, oh man, there's some really good armor in this area that will get me, that'll be an upgrade from what I have. It's the same weight, but it has more defense. Or like there's a really good weapon or like a really good spell, or maybe you're trying to get every spell, right? Go and make those goals for yourself and do as much goals as you can, right? Get as much treasure as possible. If you're weak, go think of something else to do, right? Find something to find, okay? Now, the next tip I want to give you is kind of similar to that last tip, but I see a lot of people like running past everything, right? They just run past to the boss every time. It's like we got to run past all these enemies, get to the boss, get to the boss, get to the boss, and they just level up solely on boss souls, and they only care about bosses, right? Or they will specifically ignore like enemies that are too hard. Right? If you think about it, right? 3 rune bears. If you can't even beat 3 rune bears, how are you going to beat the boss like Godric or Godwin or whatever he is, right? You're not going to be able to, right? Because the three rune bears are easier than that, right? If you can't beat the giants in Atlas Plateau, then you need to go get stronger by beating the giants in Atlas Plateau until you can beat them more easily, right? If you're finding the regular enemies too hard, then like the bosses will also be too hard because some enemies are just as hard as a boss, like the ulcerated tree spirits or whatever, right? Those are a boss sometimes, and then sometimes they're just walking around and they're regular enemies, but they're still a boss, right? You still have to beat them, right? Even though they're just an enemy, they're also something you have to beat, right? So if you can't beat every enemy in the game, you're too weak right now. If you can't beat every enemy in this area, you need to go beat some other enemies in this area until you can, right? So stop running past every enemy, right? Think of it like a challenge, like a test of your build. Like, oh, well, this enemy right outside the boss is way too hard for me. Maybe the boss himself will be way too hard for me. You know what I mean? If you're only fighting the weakest enemies, then you're getting weak enemy runes. You're getting weakling runes. You're getting the runes of only weaklings, right? If you're fighting those big, strong, beefy guys running around, then you're getting strong, beefy guy runes, and you'll level up faster. Do you feel me? Okay, let me see. What other tips do I have here? Um, oh yeah, a lot of people will say like, oh, a keen or fire or lightning or holy or whatever. They're inferior to just the straight, damage only infusions, where it's only just one type of damage, because enemies will resist it and it'll be less. You know what I mean? It'll be overall less. And while that's true at a certain point in the game, you shouldn't take that so literally just to think that that's always true. Okay? Split damage can still compensate, even during the late game. Okay? Now, during the early game, it's going to be way more powerful. Right? So, yeah, you probably want to switch off of your elemental infusion at a certain point in the game. But even if I, right now, at this level, right, level 66, and I haven't even really done Kaled, if I go around fighting in Kaled with my fire EP right now, it'll be stronger than if I do heavy, right? Because those enemies do not have enough resistance to make up for. And I've already tested this, so don't like at me about it, right? Like they are in fact weaker to my fire sword. Right? There's still a lot of enemies that are weak to fire. Okay, fire will be useful, right? Lightning will be useful. Like all of these elements will be useful for a long, long time. Okay, it'll get you a lot of distance. So use those damn elemental infusions. Okay, don't listen to people who say you need to just do only, this or that for the whole game. Right? You only just think about like just do the testing, right? Each time you level up your strength like a couple levels or whatever, or use a build calculator or whatever, and you'll find the answer, right? Just test it against the enemy. Just go and fight and then switch the infusion, then go stab them and go back to the grace and try again. Then you'll know which one does more damage for you with resistances applied. And usually like up until like very late in the game, you know, if you have a low strength or if you have a low dex or whatever, the elemental infusions will be better. Okay, guys. Let me see. Do I have any more tips? No, I mean that's pretty much it. I mean, I just want to say like people are kind of like expecting everything to be handed to them in a video game or whatever, right? Like we need to make everything easier and more accessible. And it's like, but the fun is the challenge and learning. You know what I mean? And like conquering the game. Um, like, yeah, there are some games that are unfairly difficult, but that is not this game. Okay, this game is always fair, right? It is. Like, you can always dodge any attack if you knew how what the timing was. The more you fight, the more you'll learn the boss, right? You have the tools you need RPG wise to win, right? It's just like laziness, right? I see so many people like duping items or like duping runes or buying runes or whatever, and it's just like the total like impatience culture of it all. You know what I mean? Of just like you have to get total satisfaction now because I have to spend like 99% of my day making money and farming content out of this game and 1% of my day actually enjoying it, right? It's like I can't make a video about this game because it's not fun because I have to actually play it. You know what I mean? I don't know, like just enjoy the game, right? Like why do people feel like why do I see so many people leave a review of a game after like 2 hours of play? It's like so many people will straight up defend that. They'll be like, yeah, we don't have to play the game. First impressions are enough. Right? It's like you're not doing your job properly, man. Like especially if you're a professional reviewer, you need to play the game at least a while to understand it, to get over the learning curve of the game. Right? Because every game has a learning curve. And if you don't even get over the learning curve before you leave a review, your review, you're free to be like, yeah, my impression was bad, but your review is garbage, right? Like your review doesn't mean anything, right? It will represent that some people will get frustrated within an hour or two and then quit. That's all it will tell you. It won't tell you anything about what the actual game is like, what's good or bad about the game. You know what I mean? Because the person doesn't know, right? They didn't get over the learning curve. I'm not saying you need to beat every game that you review, but like I don't know, like there's just so much in our society where people are just impatient. They have no time. They have no time for self-care. They have no time to like enjoy life. And they're just in a rush to like be miserable. You know what I mean? They can't just work for the things that they want, right? They have to become instantly good at it. You know what I mean? Like it's like everybody in the workout community loving like steroids or whatever, right? It's like, no, man, that's not in the essence of doing health. You know what I mean? It's for the wrong reasons. We're just trying to be pro gamers so that we can tell everybody that we're good at Dark Souls, right? The whole thing of like cheating in Path of Exile so that you can tell everyone you're a good gamer. It's like it doesn't matter if you're good or if your reputation is as a god gamer, right? Are you having fun? Right? If you're not having fun, just try learning and like doing a better job and like taking your time, right? Stop rushing, stop being stressed out, stop worrying that you're dying so much, right? Go back, think about your build. If you really got into a situation where you have 99 dexterity and nothing else, then maybe you're totally screwed. I don't know how you grinded up your dexterity so hard in the first area, but even if you managed to do that, you're probably pretty good at the game and it's not a problem for you, right? So I really don't think that I don't know. I just think people are impatient and they need to like they I don't know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get into this whole philosophical discussion at the end here, but just I guess the lesson is just get good. So I'll leave it at that. Bye.